Welcome to Weekly World News on Spring Nectar TV, brought to you by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. First, the top headlines. Police reform, infrastructure and voting rights on priority for Democrats. Ryanair diverted to arrest journalist instructed by Belarus president. Saturday marked the second day of ceasefire between Israel and Palestine. Scaling Mount Everest is hardest during the pandemic, Sherpas say. COVID in India cause for black fungus disease. Now for news in detail. The Biden administration has a long list of legislative priorities to work on this summer. That said, Democrats are keen on securing police reform, voting rights and infrastructure first as the clock ticks on. However, on Monday, the bipartisan infrastructure deal went south as Senate Republicans made an allegation. To that effect, they alleged that President Biden had initially agreed to narrow the scope of its $2.2 trillion plan only with the intention of reversing it later. Meanwhile, two of the largest public school districts in the United States announced plans to reopen schools to 100% in-person instruction. According to sources, a sustained decline in COVID infections and increasing vaccination rates have moved public schools in Los Angeles and New York City to gear up for a full reopening of schools. The announcement was confirmed as New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio told at a news briefing, "It's time for everyone to come back. It's time for us all to be together. Time to do things the way they were meant to be done." And in Los Angeles, District Superintendent Austin Buettner confirmed that all students in elementary, middle, and high schools would be allowed to attend class full-time, except if some students or teachers choose to work from home. In his words, "We expect the vast majority of students, teachers, and staff to be at school every day, but recognize that we must provide the online opportunity for those who need it," he said. Last weekend was marked by at least 12 mass shootings across 8 states. The shootings that took place between Friday and Sunday have left 11 people dead and injured 70. Here's a quick look at some. On Sunday, a private event in Park Forest, Illinois turned violent after an altercation took place inside the business and a shooting ensued. The incident left 4 injured. And in Ohio, 3 people were dead and 3 injured on Sunday at Torch Club Bar and Grill in Youngstown after a shooting. Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, more than 1 mass shooting took place in separate incidents and took away the lives of 2 people and injured 8. Commenting on the multiple mass shootings, the mayor Jacob Frey said in a statement, "Last night again brought tragic news. Again, our collective conscience is shocked. These outcomes are not faded. We can stem crime in our city, but it will take all of us coming together with a renewed commitment to preventative work and a shared resolve to stop the gun violence and bring the perpetrators to justice." Night owls and sky watchers were in for a double treat on the wee hours of Wednesday morning as the moon entered the Earth's shadow at around 1:47 Pacific Standard Time. The eclipse was also marked by the super blood moon, a phenomenon that was visible in the United States for the first time in 2 years. Over to Belarus, an act of state terrorism has shaken up the entire world. A brief look. On Sunday, Belarusian authorities diverted a Ryanair plane to land in Minsk instead of the scheduled destination to Lithuania. A false bomb alert was used as a ruse to force land the aircraft in Minsk, Belarus. News has it that the operation was carried out under the instruction of President Lukashenko. Soon after landing, authorities took journalist Ramon Protasevich and his girlfriend. The journalist, who worked for an online news service called Nexta, is known for blowing the whistle on Lukashenko by broadcasting footage of the mass protests against him. He has been detained by Belarusian authorities on the pretext of organizing mass riots and inciting social hatred. This extreme step taken by the Belarusian government has prompted other countries to undertake security measures from their end. Subsequently, the British government has ordered all UK planes to stop flying over Belarus, and Belarusian flights have been suspended from flying over UK territory. Following the outrage, Lukashenko made his first public remarks on Wednesday. He defended his act and accused the West of launching a hybrid modern war against Minsk. He said in a speech, "We'll fly over neutral territories, the Mediterranean Sea," said Lukashenko during a speech, "but we will not get on our knees and we will not justify ourselves because there's no reason to." After over 2 weeks of incessant airstrikes between Syria and Palestine, a ceasefire held up for the second day on Saturday. Residents slowly trickled out of their homes to assess the damages caused by the bombing, which had killed 40 Palestinians on May 16th. A shop owner, Hamdi Naban, who had opened a small store just days before the conflict, blocks away from the bombing site, said, "Thank God we're still alive. I was totally afraid about my business. There were some rumors the building next to us was going to be destroyed," he said. According to the United Nations and Palestinian authorities, the crossfires has displaced at least 65,000 Palestinians out of their homes and has damaged thousands of buildings. Over to Nepal. From time immemorial, several thousand climbers have scaled Mount Everest with the anticipated challenges usually faced by climbers and Sherpa guides. However, in the light of the pandemic, climbers are facing additional hurdles making the climb doubly challenging. To this end, Everest South Base Camp, where Nepali Sherpas and climbers build group affinity, has no refuge from the global pandemic. The need to follow safety protocols and that some climbers tested positive have pushed climbers to stay within their separate camps. However, there is no official record of any positive case. According to Rudra Singh Tamang, Director General of the Department of Tourism, everything is fine, and last week around 100 climbers scaled the Everest, with some more people starting their ascent this week. Moving on, another breakthrough in COVID vaccine comes through following the approval of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for children aged 12 to 15. The Moderna vaccine has made progress in this sphere. News has it that for children aged 12 to 18, the efficacy of the vaccine was found to be 93% after the first dose and 100% 2 weeks after the second dose. Phase 2 of the clinical trial also brought to light that there were no serious side effects or safety concerns. The trial group, which encompassed over 3,700 adolescents, was split into two subgroups. Group A made up for 2/3 of the group size and received the vaccine, while the remaining 1/3 was administered a placebo. Results revealed that not a single adolescent from Group A got infected compared to 4 cases in the placebo group. As the next step, Moderna will seek approval from the FDA for emergency use of its vaccine in children aged 12 to 18. In the words of the CEO of Moderna, "We will submit these results to the US FDA and regulators globally in early June and request authorization." Over to Spain. 1 year after the pandemic had hit the tourism industry really hard, the country is now gearing up towards welcoming tourists with the hope of reviving the economy. To this effect, the government announced that starting May 24th, visitors from the UK and Japan will be free to enter Spain without having to produce a negative COVID test. As the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said at a tourism fair on Friday, Spain will be delighted, very delighted to welcome all British tourists and tourists from some other countries with low COVID infection rates. However, news has it that since Spain still holds the amber status on UK's travel list, travelers returning to the UK from Spain will have to provide proof of negative COVID as well as quarantine for 10 days upon arrival. In that context, although Spain has opened its borders to Britons without restrictions, Britons have been urged not to travel to Spain as the country is still on UK's amber list. Moving on to India, a rare fungal disease has been stirring up the nation even as COVID rates start declining. Several states have reported an increased number of black fungus disease in patients that have recovered from coronavirus. Called mucormycosis in medical parlance, the disease initially affects patients in the nose and subsequently spreads into the brain. It has a 50% mortality rate and more often than not, a surgery involving the removal of the eye or part of skull and jaw is the only treatment. By far, over 7,200 people have been affected by the disease. Study also revealed that cases of mucormycosis were more prevalent in those patients who had severe cases of COVID coupled with overuse of steroids during treatment. On the trade front, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on May 25th and extended his support for the latter's re-election to second term. The two also discussed a range of issues from COVID vaccines to terrorism. And now he's all set to meet U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at the Pentagon on Friday. The primary agenda is to discuss with various entities that are involved in the production of COVID vaccines and look at the prospects of producing these vaccines in the near future. Meanwhile, 2 engineering students from the Indian Institute of Information Technology invented a breakthrough bot that alerts users on the availability of the COVID vaccine. They named it COVID Alerts, which is used in conjunction with the Telegram app and alerts users when a slot is available for vaccination in their age group. Developed by Rohan Rajpal and Paras Mehan, this technology aims at increasing the chances of successfully booking a slot. Now, for some food for the thought. Have you ever wondered why the sound of munching, slurping, or chomping is annoying for some? An extensive study conducted by researchers at Newcastle University revealed that some people are averse to common sounds like chewing. This syndrome is called misophonia. It was discovered that people with misophonia have a strong association between that part of the brain that processes sounds and the part that handles mouth and throat muscle movements. According to Dr. Sukhbinder Kumar, a neuroscientist at Newcastle University, what we are suggesting is that in misophonia, the trigger sound activates the motor area even though the person is only listening to the sound. It makes them feel like the sounds are intruding into them. Bringing you the last in this week's news report, a handwritten letter by the famous physicist Albert Einstein was sold at an auction for more than $1.2 million. The letter that contained the world-changing equation E is equal to mc squared was sold by a Boston-based auction house for 3 times more than expected. It has been noted that there are only 3 other known examples of the equation handwritten by Einstein. With that, we bring you to the end of this news bulletin. I'll see you next week with more world news on Spring Nectar TV. Thank you for watching.